What's up, everybody? Michael Gilly here from FloMarching. Joining us is Andy Shama. Oh, my! Already,
that was close. That was close.
Andy Shama.
And Chris Walker. I took right out of the gate. Anyhow, welcome to the Drill Down. The show's live right now on Facebook and on the website, so make sure that you jump on. If you have any questions about the show, if you have any questions that you want to ask us, make sure you jump on social media and ask them. Kayla here will relay those to us.
Yeah.
So
Always.
We're always wanting to engage you guys and see what you guys have to think. We've got, we're right in the middle of the season for WGI. Not this weekend, but next weekend we've got huge power regionals coming up. We got 5 of them.
Wow. Six venues.
Right, yeah, a ton of venues, a ton of guards, a ton of percussion and winds. So it's all going to be on display. But what we wanted to do for this episode was we just kind of want to have an open discussion.
Yeah, keep it low key.
Yeah, we've been.
Excuse me.
Isn't that a character from
Loki?
Like,
oh my gosh! Yeah.
Loki.
Yeah.
No, we're not doing the
Norse
Avengers.
mythology?
We are already there.
brother?
Anyway, we'll keep this one rolling.
So we want to keep a
Love this.
discussion today about what topic, Gilly?
So it's an interesting phenomenon that we've been seeing, and it's discussing whether or not groups, show designers should give you all of the detail, all of the background regarding the shows that they are putting out there.
Yeah.
There tends to be 2 trains of thought, and the first one is that we're gonna tell you everything we can about the show. We're gonna give you all the little tiny details, and we're gonna put it all out there so that the audience and the judges and everybody who's watching it can really follow along and follow the concept and what they're seeing. The other side of it is that they're not going to tell you much of anything.
Yeah.
And they want you to watch the show and you have your own interpretation about what the show means to you. So in a sense, every member of the audience might have a little bit different take on the show.
Yeah.
And it may not mean the same thing. And whatever. And it's an interesting discussion. But then you find little details. You find out things like, well, yeah, they're going to do that, but then they're also going to give a full synopsis to the judges so that the judges can follow along and know all the tiny little details.
Yeah.
Because they have to check off certain boxes, if you will, on the score sheets to understand where the groups are achieving and how are they fitting into the scoring sheets and the rubrics.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting discussion, and I just wanted to throw it out there to see what you guys think.
Yeah.
Well,
You want to go
what I
first?
think,
Let's hear it.
Looks like Chris is
got an
about ready to go.
opinion.
I just think it's a general question about art.
Yeah.
When you have art, how much does the thought process that goes into making the piece of art, how much does that play into the viewer's interpretation? Is it important, or is it just the impression, whatever this viewer gets? I don't know.
Of the final product.
I
Yeah.
always
Yeah,
struggle with this. I was just talking with a friend recently about this problem, and I think because we live in a postmodern era, maybe postmodern. How many posts are lots of posts there? It really everything
Daily
is
thing
up
that I have
for
to deal with this.
everything is up for interpretation.
Yeah. My big question is, like, does it add value to know the process behind it and how they got to the final product? Or, like, the thought process behind the designers and, like, what made them put these pieces together to get the show that the audience watches. And then maybe that's an abstract concept that the audience won't understand, even if you do explain it. So, there's at both sides of it.
Yeah, I really like the idea of at least there being some context given to shows, because I have found that while I can't have an initial impression of a show and come up with my own interpretation, I really appreciate having the kind of thought process behind the show and knowing the kind of creative background behind it.
Yeah.
Like the Invictus show really comes to mind. Like I appreciated watching that show at kind of like the first regional, and I kind of took it, and I'd seen a lot of shows that day, and I was like, this is really cool, but after I read your article and went back and watched it again, I was like, there's so much more here than I had seen originally. And then I went on like a rabbit hole looking into the Elephant Man movie on Wikipedia. And then that show is going to be so much more rich when I watch it again.
Yeah, I think that's honestly like an outlier though, Invictus, because it's such an accessible idea. It makes it so easy to just do the research. And that's a whole other argument on its own. Is like, should the audience have to do research to get the show, or should it just be
weirdo in that I like doing that?
Right. So. I like it too because it adds more value to the
–
performance for me, because then I understand why they did this, exactly why they're only using one hand in that rifle part, like stuff like that. And I mean, it translates to WGI and DCI, really.
Related, but also unrelated. I went to an art gallery a few weeks ago out in Nacogdoches.
Oh.
It was actually, well, I was visiting some friends.
Okay.
And there's this really cool like projection thing going on. You know, it's like, wow, this is a really cool show. Went out into the hallway, and there were these tables, kind of like, you know, you'd be eating or drinking at a party off these, you know, kind of
cocktail height tables.
Yes, and there were little flowers kind of on some of the tables, and there were also spotlights on some of the tables. And I was like, whose pieces are these out here? Like, this is kind of an odd show. And it turns out that was just leftover from a party like the night before.
Oh my God.
And the spotlights just happened to be on some of the tables and not on some other ones. And so anyway, so just that idea going into like a WGI show, like how much is there a pre-show going on? Is them setting up like part of the show? Like I start to really get my head over show concepts, and I don't know. Knowing about it beforehand or like your feeling while watching it, I don't know if they really play into one another all the time.
You know, it's interesting. We were having a discussion a while back about when we were composing, because you've obviously got a composing background. I did some composing when I was in school. And we were talking about a piece of music that I was thinking about doing that was writing based off of writing a wind ensemble based off of an exorcism. And we were having this discussion about all the different ideas of where the different sounds would come in. We would start off with a kind of a Gregorian chant kind of thing, where it's very pure and very, holistic sounding, and then it would introduce the idea of kind of a whatever sound that's the start of the possession, if you will, and then it would manifest itself and continue to go down a darker path, and then yada yada yada. And when you think about composing, and I want to ask you this, when you were writing, would you want the audience members to know all of those tiny little details that were going through your head when you were writing? Because to me, that would, like you said, that would make me appreciate the composers and the artists' thoughts that much more. Yeah.
I don't know, because you're not always going to have the ability to talk to the person. You know, what was going through Beethoven's mind.
You're not always going to have those program notes.
Was his mind playing the sound of silence going on? You know?
Right.
Or, I mean, for real, John Cage talks about silence a lot. He has a whole book called Silence, a collection of light writings. But he also is kind of popular for talking about sounds don't have to mean anything. Like, we put meaning, like, this sound means it's a ghost. This sound means it's like a guy saying the power of Christ compels you, or whatever. But it can just be sound, you know, so we prescribe all these different meanings to things that don't actually really have much meaning. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm a nihilist now.
That's really interesting.
Means anything.
Because that applied to Tilt. When I marched in Bluecoats in 2014, we had this meeting at the end of spring training with the designers, and they were like, look, people are going to try and pull storylines out of this, and it's really not anything like that. It's just, it should be just a show for the audience, and like we're just taking a bunch of Tilted concepts and putting it all together into one like cohesive
it's just
thing.
Cool. It's a cool visual, and I think that's okay. Like, there's a lot of people that watch shows of any type, you know, like PCI shows or WGI shows, and like, what's the story? I have to understand the concept. Well, sometimes it's just a cool show. Like, sometimes it's just for it to look really neat and to have a good time and to show impressive technique.
But at the same time,
that's perfectly fine.
But at the same time, there are people like you could have a different core, completely take a different approach to the same exact concept, get the same product on the field, and it has a completely different meaning.
Yeah.
I always think about this. If you accidentally created something that someone spent a lot of time creating, I think it's possible maybe in the art world, if you're doing like abstract art, you know, oh, anyone can paint a canvas white. You know, there's that argument. Well, maybe there's like some other details going in and it's really not just white or whatever. I don't know. This is like getting into a weird territory. Or Jackson Pollock, I can throw some paint on there. Or I think if I go into Finale or Sibelius and I just put a bunch of random notes in here, like, how is that different from if I like really spent a lot of time and did some like serial writing? Well, I guess it would be quite different. But the sound, if by chance you created the same piece that had a lot of intention put into it, is the end result, well, the end result is the exact same, you know, so does one have more meaning than the other? This guy spent a lot of time and effort. This guy just threw a bunch of, you know, notes on a page. They have the same amount of difficulty in the end when you play it, like, which means more? And I would say they both mean the same.
Yeah.
Because it's the viewer's impression or the performer's impression of what it is they're playing. So. Because
then you're kind of getting into the territory of like, who are you making the art for? Like, is the artist making it for themselves and therefore it has inherent value,
True.
or is it for the audience? It makes me think what you were like mentioning about the museum thing. I go to museums a lot because I'm a bit of an art buff, and I only recently, like in the past couple of years, have become really dedicated to reading kind of like the name piece that goes with each piece. Before I would just kind of like float around and enjoy pieces for myself. But it's so interesting sometimes how you will have an immediate reaction to a painting or a sculpture or just kind of like a more experiential piece of art that's, you know, like more performative, like a, you know, a film displayed or something like that, or cocktail tables. You know, well, you'll have kind of like an initial reaction, and then sometimes I'll go and read the nameplate, and I'm like, what? Like, you know, they're like, oh, this is about the Battle of blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
blah.
right.
I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So
this is a chair painted white, you know.
And it stands in for the oppression of whatever. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, I had, you know, and that, I mean, I think it really comes from the fact of like, okay, so it meant that for the artist, but it doesn't have to mean that for the appreciator.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of stands in the same thing for shows. You know, as I'm watching a lot of these shows during the event season, I'm appreciating them kind of for what they are, but also for kind of like the technical components and for just kind of like me being entry-level WGI appreciator and being like, that's a pretty flag. What a pretty silk. So maybe I don't need that context.
I want to bring that idea around to like the foundation of what I think this problem is who is the audience, who are the chorus or who are the, you know, ensembles performing for? Is it for the judges or is it for the audience? And obviously competitively it's for the judges completely, but the audience has a benefit from being non-competitive, where they can just appreciate the art aspect a whole lot more than maybe the judges can. So if you have the group sending the same information that the judges get to the audience, you know, that raises, in my opinion, I'm just going to say it, I think that would completely raise the value of what the audience can pull away from the experience.
Yeah,
well, go ahead.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that one, because it just, if you think about it in terms of trying to, like, one of my biggest goals with FloMarching and with what we're doing here is to bring more people to this activity as far as watching it and engaging it and appreciating what, you know, because we can sit here and we can watch a show and we can appreciate when they're throwing a 6, when they're playing, you know, flam 5s off the left, when they're playing, you know, just pure sounds through the brass instrument or through the woodwinds or doing a crazy hard drill. We can appreciate all of those little nuances. But somebody who has never marched before, who has never performed, they may watch it and they'd be like, oh, it just looks easy.
Yeah.
It looks easy. When we know it's really not. It's insanely difficult.
And it's entirely their job to make it look easy.
Right, and that's the whole purpose behind technique and behind carriage and yada, yada, yada. But if I can get that person who watches the show and just thinks of, oh, it's no big deal, to understand a little bit more about all of the details, all of the tiny little nuances that go into every single performance, that will engage that person and be like, oh, wow. There's a lot more happening here than I ever realized and that I ever knew was even possible with the show. You know, because most of the time now, like my non-band, non-marching friends, when they see what we're doing, they're like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. Yeah. And once I kind of start to talk to them and explain a little bit about it, dude, they like immediately jump on it, and they're just like, wow, this is
I don't know.
way more advanced than I thought it was ever capable of doing.
I think I have to disagree a little bit there, because when you see a piece of hyper-realistic art, you know, you think, oh man, that looks really pretty. I don't understand how they did it. But you take a class on like how to shade properly, and you're like shading for days or whatever. I don't know.
Does it remove the fantasy? Yeah.
I don't know if it really makes the end result any better. You're like, oh, okay, now I understand how complicated that is. But it still is like it's the feeling, it's the moment, it's the experience you have with that piece, whether it's a WGI show, DCI show, or piece of visual art.
I think in that context, it's like you're creating art for the artists. Like you get the people who like WGI shows that are really technically difficult, or like those really, really important pieces, people that understand the sport. It's like people who like make music for musicians. It's like really technically complicated, and there's like a very specific subset of people who appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because like when I go to a museum, I was at one in Tulsa actually this weekend, and there was a painting that it kind of like first blush, I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty, and I kind of moved on, and I came back and I read about it, and it was like multiple pieces of this very thin fabric that had like she'd hand done them. And there was a tapestry where she had dyed every line of the cord to match the temperature of the ocean in like a specific year. So it was this big piece that matched kind of like the mapping of the heat of the ocean. It was talking about ecology. I thought it was fascinating. And you would just look at it and be like, it's a tapestry. But it's not. That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
I think those pieces are what make it really interesting.
I don't know. I don't know. If that
Chris disagrees.
If that information gets lost, what does it mean? Does it mean anything without the story?
That's a great question.
I don't know. I think it's an ongoing like thought process.
You're familiar with the Richard Hall down at Texas State, a good friend of both of ours. I remember he wrote an electronics piece, and I think we talked about this. He wrote an electronics piece, and he didn't tell anything about the audience. He didn't tell the audience anything about it. He just said, "Hey, I'm debuting this new electronics piece. I want you guys to come check it out." And the audience came and they listened to it, and as they're walking out of the auditorium, he's standing there greeting them, saying, "Hey, what'd you think of the piece?" And like 85% of them were just like, "This was terrible." Like, I hated this piece. Like, I can't stand what you did. I did not like it. I was like, bleh, just like it made me feel crappy. I didn't like it. And then he goes, he's sitting there, he's receiving this criticism, and he's shaking their hands, and he's just smiling, and he's just loving every second of it. You know why? That was his intent with the piece. Yeah. He wrote a piece and with the intention of making the audience upset. He wanted them to not like the piece. So he accomplished his goals, but now had he told them beforehand, "Hey, guess what, everybody? You're going to listen to this piece, and I want you to hate it." Then it would completely ruin the experience. Yeah. But that was the purpose behind what he did.
Ricky is one of my favorite people. He also taught me about musical cryptography, which is where you're applying letters to like note what am I trying to say here? The notes mean letters. There's like a
Illuminati.
No, like A. The note A would be representing the letter A. And B would be representing the letter B, C, so on and so forth. So you can spell words inside of music.
Pitches.
Very short words. Very long.
As many words as you want.
You would manipulate it
from the bottom all the way to the top A to Z kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like if you wanted A would be A, like in
A1,
and then A sharp might be B.
Okay. Yeah.
Or
A flat might be C,
B flat,
or whatever.
So like Bach would do
Wait
this,
a minute.
and it would be B
I don't know,
A C H, and where B was like B flat, and then A C, and then H was B natural or something like that. I don't know if anyone knows what it actually is. Comment below. But
maybe you can explain it to us.
But all sorts of people would do this thing. But what I'm trying to say is, no one knows that. No one's hearing, I hear Bach in that. Like it's just music. So whatever his intention was to put his name in the piece, the listener, unless they specifically hear, B flat, A, C, B natural, as like a word, it's an interesting kind of weight there. Like
he writes a piece that he wants everybody to hate, but if everybody listens to it and hates it, then they actually like it because they understand his appreciation. And then if somebody listens to a piece,
man, that's interesting.
If everybody like listens to a piece and goes, "Oh, that piece that sounds like crap," and then you go back and you understand like, "Oh, he was like hiding messages within the music." You're like, "Dude, this is like brilliant stuff." You know what I mean?
We got an interesting comment actually from somebody watching today that I think is on point for this. Okay, if art is communication, this is from Dave Knowlton, by the way. If art is communication, then we want the audience in on our jokes. If art is self-indulgent, that is only for the artist. Certainly we can, by design, allow the audience to pull out what we offer as artists, but shouldn't we have intent as we communicate?
Yeah,
what is the actual intent?
I think that's the postmodern paradox, which is a term I'm coining. You can have as much intent as you want, and you want to get everyone in on your joke, but at the end of the day, if they don't hear the joke, or if they don't have access to the joke, your art has to speak for itself.
True.
That's my point.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
You know, coming from an old graphic designer standpoint, like if I designed a business card, and it was the most beautiful thing that I thought it was just a gorgeous piece of art, and I handed it to you, and you said, "Dude, I can't read your phone number." Like, at that point, does the business card fail because it doesn't translate the information that it's supposed to?
Maybe they didn't want you to get the phone number. Maybe
have
credit. You know.
All right, Chris, cut that out. All right, but I do want to. Chris told me a great joke this morning.
Why no?
Please tell me it's about postmodernism.
No, it's about. Is it a polar bear? Is that correct?
Well, my wife actually told me the joke,
Yeah.
and it's her grandfather's joke, so I take no ownership for this. And if I butcher it,
But you brought
I'm
it to the
sorry.
table.
Well, someone else brought it to the table, but I'll knock it out.
It was a pretty good joke. I would love to share it.
Okay. Oh, dang. Okay, so I'll ask you, Michael.
Oh.
How do you, what's the setup here? Okay. How do you, dang it, my wife's gonna kill me. How do you capture a polar bear?
I have no idea.
Okay, you get a bag of frozen peas, you know, you walk out onto the ice, you know, cut a hole in the ice, and you place the peas around the hole you just cut out, and when the polar bear comes up to take a pee, you kick him in the ice hole. It really landed a lot better.
Your grandfather and Liberty?
No, Liberty, I was like dying laughing this morning.
Me too. It was so funny.
I don't know.
So Liberty's grandfather told it to Liberty and then passed it along to Chris.
Did it miss a part of the joke at some
There's
point?
a good chance I missed a part.
No, that's hilarious.
But as far as I remember it, that's it. So
Artist interpretation at that point, you know.
Oh, man.
Does it deliver? Does it deliver? Does it not? I mean,
I think it delivered. I really do.
Well, know your audience, I guess.
Oh man, what else we got?
Couchman, but
yeah,
Couchman are actually coming out with a new logo today. But anyhow, I just wanted to wrap up the conversation before we move on.
So stupid.
But yeah, so it's an interesting little conundrum, if you will, to debate whether people should be putting out the entire complexities of their shows and their show designs because these shows, the designers do put so many details into them, and sometimes those details kind of get lost because we just watch it and we're appreciating it, but we don't necessarily know all the tiny little things that are happening. And it's just an interesting debate if whether or not all those tiny little details were explained to the audience, would it engage them even more, and would it pull more people in, or do we just say, no, you have to watch it and just kind of figure it out yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Aaron Copland would say in his book, How to Listen to Music, I believe that's what it's called, in the very first page it says, listen to the notes, because as the piece progresses, you're probably going to hear those same notes, so you understand how things change. So again, even if you just have some basic knowledge of how shows are constructed, it will help you viewing any particular show. So, yeah.
From the parents' standpoint, I think that they deserve to know the show. I remember my parents watching my freshman year, my first year in high school marching band, and being like, Kayla, we've seen this show 15 times. we have no idea what this is about.
Yep.
Honestly, I still couldn't tell you what it was about. I have no idea. The music was about demons, like goblins. Literally goblins.
Wait. Whatever.
Yep.
Anyhow,
It's on YouTube, guys.
What is happening today?
I don't know.
Right.
Anyhow, Couchman actually did come out with a new logo. Like, this was the video that they released yesterday.
Looks boss. Way to go, Zach.
Very intriguing. Oh, and there goes my computer loading. And
so this was a teaser, right? This was a teaser that went out
Yeah.
last
They're
night where
getting
he
into
was
that
like,
drum corps hype game.
yeah, my computer's failing on me.
Hashtag
Yeah.
fail.
Yeah.
Anyway, go to Couchman and go check it out. He's got some super cool new merch.
Yeah.
Zach's obviously put a lot of work into this, and
Wasn't it
everything-
his birthday yesterday?
It was
Yeah,
his birthday.
yeah,
And
so-
Santa Clara Vanguard, so shout out to
yeah,
both
they
of
have
them.
the same little birthday.
Yeah.
It's really cute.
No.
Okay.
Now, if only he had the same birthday as Crown, then truly they would be the OTP.
I don't know what,
What
that
does that
means.
It means
stand for?
one true pair. Have you guys ever watched a
No.
television show
I
in your
come
life?
from the video gaming world where it stands for one trick pony. And I'm not going to describe that, but yeah.
It's like you just kind of.
For anyone who's ever been on Tumblr, OTP, one true pair. Speaking to the youth, guys.
Oh, man. All right, well, check out his merchandise. It's really cool, honestly. And
Yeah.
he also tweeted a bunch of stuff. They were taking photos last night, and I believe some sirens rolled up on him. So
Dramatic.
he got some video of that, too. It was really cool. Yeah, really excited. I'm really excited.
Well, we're gonna
It's a good
go
game.
continue to having these debates.
Yeah.
But yeah, make sure you check out on the site. We're gonna have so much more stuff. We've got some great Monarch percussion videos up on the site as well too. We've got the regionals, power regionals are coming down the line. These over these next couple of weeks. We've got 5, not this weekend, but next weekend,
5 power regionals.
and then
Yeah.
I think there's like
2
another.
stacked weekends in a row.
Yeah,
So
and then like
17th
another
and
5 or
18th,
6 the
huge.
following weekend, right?
Yeah, it's 2 really, really big weekends. Next weekend, Chromium Winds is going to be taking over our Snapchat, so that's cool.
Yep.
And if you think about it, like this time in almost a month, we're gonna be at World Championships.
A month and a week, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's coming up fast.
Hold on to your butts.
I can't wait, honestly. That's my favorite time of the season. When we get to UD Arena, I love that place. It's like home to me, second home.
Yeah, I'm super stoked about seeing sunny Ohio.
Hopefully it won't snow this year.
So I'm wondering if there's going to be like some carts that we can race it down the hill to
Oh,
Dayton.
man.
I mean, if we had those
no.
those broken arrow carts, dude, that would be hilarious.
I think Tarpon Springs has motorcycles.
That was from Bands
Bands of America, yeah.
Yeah, from there. Are they including them this year?
No,
What?
I think they have Tarpon. I think they
No,
have.
Tarpon Springs Broken Arrow.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I know. Tarpon Springs did the
No, I think they
Madness
have
show.
big motorcycles on their floor this year. I swear. I
Oh,
saw
are
that.
they
They may
using
have-
them from
yeah.
the Madness show?
They
Oh,
may
no, I
have
know what
they may
I'm
have
talking
pulled them from their fall show.
Yeah.
I
So-
drove through Broken Arrow this weekend, and I thought about texting you guys and being like, "Hey guys,
I'm
I'm in
Should've
the
picked
place."
up a cart for us.
I know.
I'm
I should have
wondering-
taken the cart instead of my rental car.
I'm wondering
would've been
how
faster.
Strike Percussion is going to get an airplane down the tunnel.
Well, we're gonna see.
They
that-
literally
we
have
see
an
them-
airplane.
We see them coming up the first weekend of Power Regionals. So I'm really
I'm
excited.
ready for the plane. Bring
Yeah,
it on.
Definitely.
Plane
All
time.
right. All right, guys. Well, that's going to be the show for this morning. Make sure you check it out later up on the site. We'll chop some things up as well, too. As always, make sure you check us out on social media. It's all at FloMarching, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, all of the above. Do we have any Snapchat takeovers happening?
Chromium Wins. We just had Interplay, so you can check that stuff out soon. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll put it somewhere. It already happened. It's gone. 24 hours.
Yeah,
But-
and if we're going to be at a lot of these Power Regionals coming up here soon, so if you guys have any crazy inspirational stories that you want us to latch onto and put some, I don't know, put an
Content out
article-
there.
yeah,
Cameras
put some
behind
cameras behind it or
it from
whatever. Please make sure you reach out to us and let us know, and we will see you guys on the road. So for Chris Walker, Kayla Moses, Andy Shama, I got that one right this time.
Yes, you did.
And Michael Gilly, we will see you guys next week.